You know, the narrative being pushed online by the MAGA crowd is that racism doesn't exist anymore. They'll say racism used to be a problem, but not anymore. They'll say racism is the fault of people like me. If we just stop talking about it, the racism and hate would just go away. Maybe somebody should have mentioned that, the other week to that crazed gunman in Jacksonville, crazed racist gunman in Jacksonville who went into that store, that dollar store, and killed 3 black people after he wrote a whole screed about racism and how much he hated black people. Or maybe they should have called that out to those swastika flag waving masked Nazis, a platoon of them, who marched through the Orlando area last week. To be honest with you, it's really insulting when white people tell me that something isn't racist. I mean, how the hell would you know? Have you ever lived in black skin? If you did, you wouldn't say that. And please don't start talking about reverse discrimination or telling me about the time some black person was rude to you. Many white people were cruel to me, to my parents, to my great-grandparents, and so on. And so, these white people who keep throwing out hate, if white people keep throwing out hate, don't be surprised if some hate comes back at you. I don't hate anybody. I don't hate white people. Well, I need to say, I probably actually do hate racists. But hate is a bad thing. It's poisonous and it's dangerous. And the racism just really needs to end because it's just crazy. I'm told that in Alcoholics Anonymous they have that 12-step program, and the first step is to admit that there's a problem. And friends, racism is a major problem in this country. It has been a problem in this country since 1619, when the first enslaved people were brought here. And despite all the marching and singing and laws have been passed, the problem is still here. Sure, we don't have the colored water fountains, anymore, because they passed in 1964, they passed the law that basically said all public accommodations are supposed to be open to everyone. And that's why I say, this whole thing of racism, it's not a thing of the past. In 1964, when that Civil Rights Act got passed, I was in the 4th grade. So this is not history. It's part of my life, and we're still living it. And if you think that stuff was in the past, well then, let's just go back to late last month. A couple of black truck drivers stopped at a Denny's restaurant in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to get something to eat. And 2 waitresses denied them service because they were black. They're the only black people who were there. And so it's not a thing of the past. But you know what? Let's not even get off blaming this on 2 racist waitresses in South Dakota. People say, oh, well, South Dakota, this is, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, I need to mention this. It's not some wide spot in the road. It's a city of like 200,000 people, okay? So they should have known better. They should have been better. Denny should have been better. But, let's just not blame these waitresses. How about humiliating racial profiling by police, where police stop you because you look suspicious and pull you out of your car and make you put your hands up and walk backwards to them? I've had this done to me, and I've never committed a crime. But let's not even stop there. Across this country, particularly in the South, state legislatures have jumped through all kinds of hoops in the last couple of years to change laws to make it more difficult for black people to vote. Okay, basically taking away the right to vote. That's what the march from Selma to Montgomery is about, the right to vote. And they're still trying to take that right back from us. And when they don't make it hard to vote, then they've also jumped through a lot of hoops and changed around the congressional district maps to make it difficult for black people to elect a person of their choice to serve them in Congress. And the federal court has come back and told those states in particular Florida and Alabama. So these districts you've drawn here are unconstitutional, are racist, are violating the law. And you know what the legislatures and the governors of those states did? They flipped off the federal court. They told them to go to hell. We're going to do it our way. So it's the racism it's not just the flagrant stuff like this I'm talking about. I'm also talking about structural racism, the stuff that black people endure every day. A couple of facts to consider. The typical full-time, and I need to read this so I get this right, the typical full-time white worker earns 20% more than the typical full-time black worker. And by the way, this applies to people who black workers who are college graduates and white workers who are college graduates. There's still that disparity. Why is it? Why do you think that is? That just seems so obvious. Why is the black unemployment rate always higher than the white unemployment rate? Then people say, oh, those blacks are kind of lazy. They don't really want to work. And you know what I say to the people who say that? Bullshit. Okay? Here in Orlando, go down to the Lynx, the public bus terminal, between 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock, and look at all those black workers who are getting off from work, doing shit jobs that most white people wouldn't even consider doing. And as a matter of fact, they're not even doing the shit jobs. That's probably one of 2 or 3 jobs they have to do to try and keep a roof over their head. Black people are some of the hardest working people in our society, yet for so many of us, we never seem to get ahead. And that's racism for you. Did you know, when it comes to home appraisals, this is a great one, home appraisals, they know, there have been many studies that have been done on this. If you have a neighborhood that has no black people living in that neighborhood, and you compare that to a neighborhood that has 30 to 40% black people living in that neighborhood, the appraisals are going to be higher. The value of the house is going to be valued higher, 20% higher in the white neighborhoods. But it gets better. There have even been some high-income black people who are lucky enough to live in just really spacious homes, like in Northern California, Marin County, and places like that, where they have had their house appraised. And when the appraiser came and there was a black couple in the house, the appraisal came out to be hundreds of thousands of dollars lower than for similar white houses in that same neighborhood. So then, in a couple of cases, what the black people did was they whitewashed their house. So that means they went through their house and they took out all the family photos that they had. They took out any products, like hair products and stuff like that would indicate black people live there. Then they got a white friend to pretend to be the owner of the house. And then had another appraiser come out, and guess what happened? That second appraisal was hundreds of thousands of dollars more than the first appraisal. Why do you suppose that is? Come on, folks. You know what it is. It's racism, okay? Racism is a huge problem in this country. Racism is not a black problem, it's a white problem. White people created the problem of racism, and it's gonna take white people to solve that problem. And I'm not just trying to lay a guilt trip, because I'm not laying a guilt trip, I'm just talking real talk. Because too often people are afraid to do real talk about race. There have been white people, though, who have known this is a problem all along. There have been white people who have fought racism all along. The reason why I know that, do you think the Underground Railroad would have been successful if there weren't white people who participated in that and did everything they could to help people escape from the bondage of slavery and everything? I mean, there are white people who've been on this job for a long time, and more white people need to join them. There's a woman by the name of Harriet Beecher Stowe who's standing up in the mid-1850s about this issue of racism and slavery and degradation as we meted out to black people. If you don't know who Harriet Beecher Stowe is, you need to Google her name. Then after you Google her name, you need to read her book. Listen, my main point here is this. White people, if you hate racism, if you think racism is a problem, which I think most reasonable white people would understand why that's a problem, and why are we still dealing with this? If you really want to end this problem, then I need you, we need you, America needs you. You can't just say, oh, you know what, I'm not a racist. I would never, they'll say, well, I'm not a racist because I never use the N-word. No, I don't need you to say I'm not a racist. you need to be an anti-racist. An anti-racist means you need to confront racism in your own household, in your own extended family, in your social group, in your workplace, especially when there are no black people around there. If you confront racism and you make people know that it's wrong and that you're not going to stand there and allow it to happen while you're present, or not allow it to happen at all, you know what? Some people can get pissed off at you. But guess what? If you think that's bad, think how it is for me to live in black skin in America. Think the stuff that black people, more than 40 million of us, go through every single day. Not just the overt stuff, but the quiet stuff, but the silent stuff, but the economic racism. It's time for everybody to stand up and fight back. This is not just a black issue, this is an American issue. If you're an American and you care about this country, you need to do something about it. Thank you.